We're here with Tina Thompson, WNBA Hall of Famer, 17 years in the WNBA, 4 championships with the Houston Comets, 2 gold medals, college coach, so much more. But I'm excited that you're here with us today to really dive deep into Meet the Athlete.
I didn't choose the WNBA until the final hour because my goal was to go to USC Law.
Oh, wow.
I actually started off as a cheerleader. I kind of told a little white lie to my mom that I wanted to play basketball, but it was more so because my big brother was cool. So I wanted to be around him and his friends, but they rejected me immediately.
Really? Can you share a little bit of kind of when you were looking at the trucking business and kind of what that looked like for you?
For a lot of athletes, there's a reality to, how you're able to make money. There was a former player in the WNBA who had actually started her own trucking business, and she connected me to some people. And then COVID hit.
Well, we got a prize for you today. I got a prize. I don't got a truck, but I got a prize. No.
Typically, our AFPs start, and this is what you're thinking about, between 5 to 10 tractors. They're generating between $1.5 and $3.5 million in revenue, and that typically comes out to between $1 and $300,000 in profit every year. What Amazon Freight manages is what Amazon calls the middle mile. So it's moving the freight in between warehouses. So in order to ultimately transition it to the delivery service partner that will then hand it to you. It's a relay.
At the end of the day, they've got it designed in a way that it's kind of error-proof. Almost like bowling. When you go bowling, you use those bumpers to keep your ball out of the gutter. It's a lot like that. They just keep you going the right direction.
For me, opportunities like creating a relationship with the Amazon Freight partners, another way for women to grow in the space and create something that is their own. And for WNBA players, it's necessary because you have to have more than just playing in the WNBA.
Welcome to the third podcast of Meet the Athlete. I'm excited to sit here with Tina Thompson and Kim. Today's very exciting. I've grown up a big fan of yours, and so to have you here today, I'm very humbled. I'm excited to kind of learn your journey, some of the things that most people don't know, and just kind of talk about some unique opportunities that we have in mind. For the people that don't know, I'm a founder of Just Train, a venture partner at Heartbeat Ventures. Kim is an open venture. She has her own venture capital firm, and she's the COO. She is the COO of Just Train. And we're excited to be here today with Amazon Freight Partners in their program for entrepreneurs to kind of see what the landscape could be for former athletes and individuals that would like to jump into the freight business, especially for Amazon. So we're going to dive deep into the conversation of meeting you beyond the game of basketball. But we're going to talk a little bit about basketball. To me, Kim, I'll throw it to you for a second to introduce yourself. And then obviously I'm going to introduce Tina. I'm excited about this.
We are excited about this. So as Boss said, third episode of Meet the Athlete. Every time we come to you, we're blown away by how much this has morphed and evolved. Every time we release an episode, we are inundated with requests for more information, for access and connections to the startups and the founders that we've identified. And in our most recent conversations with Amazon Freight Partners, we identified even more opportunities for athletes post the game. And Amazon is really looking at ways to create entrepreneurship and paths to wealth and to managing your own business in ways that are unique and that athletes haven't thought of before. We're so excited to have Tina Thompson with us today to explore this conversation and this opportunity.
Yeah, I'm like just jumping straight to the egg and potatoes. Is that what it's called? Eggs and potatoes? Meat and potatoes. I stopped eating eggs a long time ago. So the meat and potatoes, I became a super fan because I'm from Houston. And you got drafted by the Houston Comets, first picked in the overall draft. And I know there was a lot of work before that, but you brought 4 championships to Houston. And so I became a fan. I love the WNBA, especially growing up watching you play. You were on a dynamic team with a lot of amazing players, but you were the most dynamic. Well, You had some, but
There
you
were a
were
couple of us, few of us.
you were dominant. You were dominant, and I became a fan. But deeply rooted back to you, Los Angeles native, went to USC, and I think it's super important to kind of see where you sit today, being a trailblazer in the WNBA and just sports in general for women. And so being able to see you today and the new landscape of where we see women today in sports is super exciting. So thank you so much for joining the show. But I have so much I want to talk to you about. I know we won't get it all out, but thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So can you give us a little backstory of kind of, did you always, want to be in the WNBA? Like what that opportunity looked like? I know most of the time people think athletes wake up and they just dream about being athletes. And was that the case for you?
No, actually. I actually started off as a cheerleader. I was born in the 70s, mid 70s, and huge Showtime Laker fan. But although like my family were diehards, I wasn't into basketball. My older brother, he played Pop Warner football. He was kind of like the star athlete of our family. He like played everything, was really good at it. I was more interested. I mean, I grew up right here in LA, Culver City. So my rec center was blocks away from us, Robertson Recreation Center. It's like right off of Robertson. And he and his friends, it was something that they did every day. Like, so they would all kind of like walk this like path. And as, the further they would get, like more guys would kind of join the group. And it's like what they did after school all day during the summer. And I just wanted to see what it was about. So I kind of told a little white lie to my mom that I wanted to play basketball, but it was more so because my big brother was cool. So I wanted to like be around him and his friends. And, my mom was excited. Like she got me all the, brand new gear and shoes and all that kind of stuff, which of course, now actually being a basketball player is like an absolute no-no. You don't come in with like fresh everything, new balls and wristbands and all that kind of crazy stuff. But they rejected me like immediately. Really? I mean, like Robertson Recreation Center is like in a neighborhood. So, it's like our little rec center. So if you're kind of not from that area, you don't even know that it's there. Like people pass by it like all the time. But they threw my ball out the door. It went across the street into someone's hedges. Like, I mean, although I was an athlete, I was kind of prissy. So I wasn't even going in there to get my ball. I was just like, this is terrible. But that was like the motivating like factor because they were just so mean, and my brother was, he's kind of one of those like real like old school brothers. He's like, what you going to do about it? You know? And then that challenge there is like where it started. So didn't go back in the gym, unless it was late at night and I'm watching my brother and his friends train. And I was outside, like concrete, metal, backboards, chain link, nets, and I just worked on my game.
Did that fuel you? Do you feel like that gave you the fuel to continue to push through being rejected? And do you feel like that played a role in the back of your mind at that moment, not being accepted, or was that just what you took it as?
Well, I think it was less about acceptance, but more like the idea that you think that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And as much as I was like, very feminine and like prissy, like I was a guy's girl.
Yeah.
I grew up in a family. Well, I had an older brother who we were really close, and I did a lot of things with him. My dad is by profession, he's like a trade worker. So he worked in carpentry and construction. He had his own business. And I used to go to work with my dad. So I'm like, I could pick up 2x4s and like sling a hammer. You think I can't play basketball?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So it was more just that the challenge of like, you really think that I can't do it. And that you guys think that you're so good that it's something that I can't do. And that alone was just like, you can't tell me what I can't do.
Absolutely.
So I was so young. I think it was a lot less, not necessarily rejection, because I don't know. I don't even think that I had the emotional maturity to even look at it from that perspective.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times we try to have the answers, but I think what shocked me in what you said, you wanted to be a cheerleader. And not shocked, but you probably would have been the tallest cheerleader I've ever seen. How tall are you?
Once I got to high school, I was.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
Once I got to high school, I was. But it was Pop Warner football.
Okay.
So, it's kind of one of those things that you did like every single weekend. But literally, once I got to high school, I was extremely tall for a cheerleader.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I didn't identify in the beginning is that you're a absolute champion, right? You for four championships. Hold on, you won 4 championships, but you also have 2 gold medals. And that's like decorated as all decorated could be. And to be able to sit here, you talk about femininity and being but also having that other side. I think there's a tough balance, right? Being able to say that you were a beast, you know what I mean? You knew kind of what you wanted, knowing how to bring that inside, that feeling inside out to be able to go dominate the way you did is super, super important for young ladies to kind of see that you can still be in your feminine, but also be a beast, you know what I mean? Because you've addressed that and said that a lot, and having strong men around you played a role in that. And so I just kind of love. And so you went to USC. Was that by, family? Did someone pave the way? Was that like a school that you felt like was being a Trojan, a family tradition? How did you end up at USC?
Well, part of it being just a native, Los Angelino, but also.
That was the first time, Los Angelino. That's the first. Okay, that's the first time I heard that.
Yeah, you got to be from it to know it. But
yeah, I'm an H&R guy. Yeah,
I initially wanted to go to Harvard. Like that was my number one school. But again, just kind of very naive to the situation. I was one of 2 girls that played basketball in my neighborhood, but the only one that was like really, really like serious about it. So I just was kind of naive to the whole process of getting scholarships and stuff like that. Like I was just good because I was a worker and my mentality was like, whatever I do, I want to be the best at it. I had no idea like how far it can go. So even, I was initially supposed to go to Palisades High School and because I went to Paul Revere Junior High and, I got there. Was there a couple weeks and then we had like basketball tryouts and probably about 75% of the girls that showed up had on like Daisy Dukes and rainbow flip-flops. And I was just like, did you guys not know like the point of why we're here? So I went home and I told my mom like Palisades is not going to work for me. So that's how I got to Morningside High School in Inglewood. And not until I got there did I realize like the seriousness of it. A very decorated program. It was a program that also produced Lisa Leslie. So they were champions and just well respected in the basketball community. So I think into my sophomore year, like junior year, my head coach, like he brought me this box of like letters. Had no idea what they were. And he's like, well, there's quite a few schools that would like you to play for them. And here's the letters that they've sent you. And I was like, really? So I go home and again, naivete, I'm searching through this box, like looking for a letter from Harvard, nothing in there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So then my brother comes home and I'm like, there's all these schools, but there's nothing in there from Harvard. And he's like, T, I don't think that they like give scholarships. At the time, it wasn't, a part of just kind of like their athletic programming. So that's why. And then he's like, and they probably don't think that you would actually want to go there. So then I switched to Stanford. So Stanford was my number one school. I wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. So law school, like academics, was just a huge part of just my lifestyle. So although I was an athlete, I was a for real student athlete. And I won't go deep into the story about why I didn't choose Stanford, but it just didn't fit my personality. And then I met Marion Stanley, who was the head coach at USC, and she was just my kind of girl. She was one of the few schools that didn't tell me what they thought that I wanted to hear. She challenged me like greatly and literally said like, nothing is going to be given to you. Like everything you get here, you're going to have to earn. And I'm like, easy. Like this was the place, for me.
I mean, everything that you're saying just speaks to the resilience. And a lot of times that I found is that the answers came along the journey, right? And not, you know what I mean? A lot, especially for me, I speak about, trying to always have the answers versus finding the answer on the journey. And so that's been my superpower. A lot of times I get in trouble because I just go. But a lot of times just going, I found, you know what I mean? Versus trying to wait to find something. I was in that Pandora's box trying to discover. And so it seems like you discovered a lot in this. And so what was one of the biggest things that you would say going into the, number one, the transition of college, but going into the WNBA, the average salary at that time was what, $100,000, and the top was 250. What, knowing that there were other opportunities, because overseas, you would hear, there were better opportunities overseas for basketball, how did you, see your legacy playing out? Was there the discovery as well? Was, going to the WNBA, when did it become the dream, right? As kind of like based on salary, based on kind of all of that, knowing that there were other opportunities in different places?
Well, see, the WNBA, there were two leagues at the time. So in the WNBA was a summer league, and as it still is. But there was a winter league that started before the WNBA, and that was the ABL. So it was a league started by just a lot of kind of entrepreneurs, and they created like this women's basketball league that was athletic or athlete based, right? And they were playing astronomical amounts of money, but most of the money was being invested into the players and not necessarily the brands. So, they weren't playing in big arenas. I attended a couple games, and just the in-arena atmosphere was not that of what you would see at the level of going to an NBA game or an NFL game or MLB game. So again, you talk about that attitude of kind of being a career student. So what you described a minute ago to me is like being a career student. Like you're always looking to learn. You want to know the why, and just kind of always in that discovery process. I looked at it and I'm like, as much as initially this league will pay me personally a lot of money, I don't see the longevity like in that. So it's not necessarily a model that could be sustainable. I didn't choose the WNBA until the final hour because I had a plan. Like I went to USC like with a plan. When I got the call for the WNBA, I was like actually in a Kaplan class studying to take the LSAT because my goal was to go to USC Law. My mentor at USC was Mike Garrett, the Heisman Trophy winner, great NFL player, but also a graduate of USC Law.
Wow.
So when I came to USC, like they coupled me with him as my mentor because of his journey there as well. So I literally decided to go to the WNBA. When I say at the final hour, it was like less than 48 hours before the actual WNBA draft, because it had all happened all of a sudden. Like the WNBA started my senior year at USC. So I went from graduation literally to the WNBA. I actually had to come back home, like from Houston, because training camp had already started for me to actually graduate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's very cool. I think I just learned a lot. You definitely, in my relationship, knowing you in this short period of time, show me as a scholar, right? Very, very methodical. Your memory is, I've learned, is of an elephant, right? You don't forget anything. But I think what I've learned today and what everything this is about is literally meeting you beyond the court, what most people don't know, right? And so knowing that you were a scholar in school and studied for the LSAT, made that decision in the final hours to go to Houston. How was that, transition in literally being, you had been in LA your whole life, moving to Houston, now you're a professional athlete. And what was that transition for you in women's sports at that time? Because now they're getting a lot of publicity, but how was that back then?
And actually, just because she talked about ABL before. So can you also touch on how you think about Unrivaled versus the WNBA at this point, given that it's starting to look a lot like ABL in terms of focusing on players and thinking through compensation on that side, and just your thoughts on compensation for female athletes at this point?
Well, I mean, I would say that although the ABL was compensation for like players or athlete driven, the WNBA was a model of longevity. Like it was kind of like the brainchild of David Stern, who at the time was the commissioner of the NBA. At the beginning, in our inaugural season of the WNBA, the entire NBA owned the WNBA. So even though like each individual NBA franchise that had a team was responsible for like the day-to-day operating costs of each team, the entire NBA contributed to its existence. So therefore, there was opportunity for long-term growth because it was supported by
Subsidized.
a league 100%
Yeah.
that was proven, that had like this foundation and this wonderful history, but then also like just the insane brain of David Stern and just how he made the NBA a global brand. So for me, it was something that I could see a future in. And at the time for me, that the future was 3 to 5 years. I planned on going to the WNBA, making enough money so I could pay for law school outright and I wouldn't have any debt because I wasn't getting a scholarship to go, to law school like I did my undergraduate at USC. So, then when you look at the WNBA and just how far we've came, and we've come and just the foundation of where we started, but you see the publicity and all those things like happening for the players, there's a good balance in the sense that like ownership that for the most part, like they're getting what they need in order to be successful, but then the women are also being compensated in a way that they could look at being a professional WNBA player like as a career, and feel like they're actually professionals. So I'm really excited to see, and I'm curious to see how that looks for Unrivaled, being that it's a player-based league and just how they're able to withstand, because it's very difficult, especially when you look at the history of women's sports professionally in America. More have failed than have been successful. So I wish them the absolute best, but at the same time, history shows us that it's going to be a journey.
Yeah, for sure. When you won that first championship, how did your life change? Because you won 4 in a row. I want to be very, just
we kind of could have got 6. If our
Trust
group
me, I was
tripping, but
watching. I was watching. But you won 4 in a row. But after the first one, how did life change for you, right? Because winning a championship, and that was big. And so. I remember growing up, I'm telling you, I was young. I watched it, and talking about women's sports back then weren't as popular. I remember, you know what I mean? So how did it change for you though?
Well, it forced me to have to be a lot more social than I wanted to be. I mean, simply because, you go from, I'm a very just kind of like relaxed to myself. I wouldn't necessarily say introvert, but like I'm definitely not, even if I go into a room and I impact it, it's not going to be like with my conversation or being loud or anything like that. Like I'm a very kind of observant, kind of to myself kind of person. So, like my people are my people, like my tribe are my tribe. And for me, it was a lot because people recognized you. So, everybody wants to like, touch you and hug you and just kind of, have these conversations that at times you don't necessarily have the time for. But again, you show gratitude and appreciation that people enjoy and love what you do, but also have an appreciation like for that. So it just kind of forced me to come out of my shell a little bit and just kind of step out of the box because I was naturally very shy. So, I was not the conversation initiator and things like that. But when you're in that environment where you garner a certain level of notoriety, like you have to kind of come out of like that space and just be a little bit more social. So for me, that was a lot. I think the worst part about it was the stalkers. Like that was like crazy.
So tell us the stalker story, just one. Like what was one of the craziest stalker stories, at least one?
Well, 2 of them are still going on, which is crazy.
Wow. Yeah, wow.
Like, I mean, my career started in 1997. I've been retired since 2013.
Wow.
It's just a discomfort where you just, you can be in a room and not know like who this person is that has like this level of admiration. It's like you appreciate it, but at the same time, it like carries a level of like fear, where people are just like showing up or they're having conversations with you that's actually only happening between themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But your lack of response is triggering, but they have an inability to not recognize that they're creating the discomfort in the dynamic, and it was tough. So as much as you kind of have to be out there and you have to be social, whatever, at the same time, you're really guarded. So, I didn't spend a lot of time out without my guy friends or just kind of with a group of people, because it is a lot.
Yeah.
And then the prison mail.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother level. Yeah.
How did your business change though? So, considering that it started to grow, there was more notoriety. You had won 4 championships, gold medals, not just one. What was the shift in business, right? What I loved about what you just said, you said you were going to play the WNBA so that you can pay for law school. And that was very powerful, because you were never looking at the WNBA as the sole provider of your life, because you still wanted to be, this lawyer, or you felt like this was going to get you to your optimal place, so you wanted to live your life, but basketball ultimately did. Where was that shift for you when you think about business, right? And so you did what people dream about, right? On the main stage. And that when you do that, that comes a lot of attention, to your point. But a lot of people are interested in branding you and doing business. And so then they want to put you on commercials and TV. How did you take that, and what came of some of those opportunities, if you don't mind sharing? Because ultimately, we want to dive deep into the entrepreneur spirit of kind of where we're here today with our partners and some of the things that you're into, and going into some of the conversations that we've already talked about.
Well, I think that's the beautiful space that women's sports are in right now. And we weren't in that space at the time. For me, it was more so basketball is what I did. It is not who I am. It is a part of who I am, but not who I am in totality. And the struggle back then was that companies and corporations had an idea of who they wanted you to be or who they needed you to be for their brand, versus taking who you were and then creating a partnership based on that. I just don't think that because it was such a new space and dynamic, they didn't know how to reach the female athlete. I would get a lot of opportunities because they're like, oh, she speaks well, she's so educated, she dresses nice, she's going to show up in a certain way that is so great. But that brand didn't necessarily speak to me. And at the end of the day, of course, we're, on earth to kind of live well and provide and, do all of those things. I have my own personal constitution that I'm not willing to veer far away from that to make money.
Right.
So if your idea for me is okay, I need to be on the beach in a bathing suit to sell your product, I'm that's not me.
Yeah.
I have a t-shirt with my bathing suit on in my own backyard.
Right.
So, it's just that's not just kind of, who I am. And I believe that I know that back then that was kind of how the relationships and dynamics worked, that this was the brand, this is what they want. And, if you're going to do this, it works. If you're not going to do this, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Now we're in a space where the athlete, or we have these platforms like what you all are doing, that partners people with corporations, with brands that actually authentically fit one another.
Yeah.
And
as a pioneer in this space, how do you think about coaching younger athletes when they're thinking about what their brand is, their personal constitution, which is a phrase I love, and making sure that they stay true to who they are while taking advantage of some of these partnership opportunities?
Well, I think that it's very important to stay true to yourself. She gets a lot of flack about it, but it's one of the things that I totally adore about Angel Reese. We are very different in personalities, but the thing that I love about her the most, and I absolutely respect, is she is who she is.
Yeah.
And she does not veer too far away from that. And I liken it to, back in the day, well, I can say that now because I'm almost 50, but Allen Iverson, he was not the norm, for the professional athlete. He was authentically himself, and He found a way to be himself, and brands adjusted to him, or the brands that saw him for who he was and felt like that persona would work with them are the ones that he had a relationship with. And just women or female athletes didn't necessarily have that opportunity. So I think that you're going to get the most fulfillment and the most enjoyment out of these partnerships and these relationships when they speak to your person and who you are.
Yeah, I mean, you've done amazing in your career path, and then you just talked about, Kim just mentioned your path to helping young athletes,
Mm-hmm.
and so you went and assisted at University of Texas. And how was that? What was that journey like? Going back, with, does these young girls kind of know your path? What's different? What have you learned? It's a new age, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more notoriety. People want to be stars of social media. So how did you navigate you being so reserved to now your athlete may, be on social media doing something completely different, and leading them, not just from your viewpoint, but to a point of success? How are you as a coach today when you were in it?
Well, I just say that people have to go about their journey again, like the way that it speaks to them. I didn't want to be a star.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I could play basketball and win and be successful at that and no one knew who I was, I would be so happy with that, as long as I was compensated properly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, that is not like realistic, but I believe that, again, we're in a different space where like who you are is acceptable, and, at a time when we were going through that process, it wasn't that it was unacceptable, but in order to be in certain spaces, you had to fit into the mold. That's why, when you look back at, the beginning of the WNBA, you only see so many faces.
Yeah.
Because those faces were the ones that fit into the mold that, I guess, these different companies and brands felt like this was going to push, the initiative or to work whatever campaign it was that, they were trying to push. So as a coach, at Texas and then moving on to Virginia, one of the things that I thought was very important is like, be true to yourself and who you are. Like, being who you are is the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
It's not something that you have to think about. It's not something that you have to rehearse. It's not something that you have to practice. Like, you literally can show up. And when you are your authentic self, you don't have to remember what you said. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, think about, well, what did I say in this situation? You said like what you felt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And to me, when those relationships are garnered, they're the ones that have the strongest foundation, because they are made like in truth and authenticity. So it was one of the things, especially the fact that I was kind of mentoring and growing in these very formative years, like so many young women of color, not only, but I had the blueprint because I had done it before. So just being able to pour into them so that they didn't have to jump over the obstacles or kind of go through the trials and tribulations that I did, hoping that if they followed it, they would have a more kind of straight path, and that they could find success in a lot less time.
Yeah. What you said hit home for me, showing up as your authentic self. But for me, it's difficult when I see talent in someone that they don't see in themselves, and allowing them to continue to stay in that same place. Because, for me, I want to be a driver. I want you to be authentic, but I also want to, if the characteristics of someone that that you can push and pull in a good direction, is something that I love to do, to see people become better than themselves. And so what they even believe of themselves, I want you to be authentic. And that's who I've shown up to be in my whole, everything that I've ever built. Right. I cannot not be me. And so I find it difficult though, being a coach, and, I've trained people for a really, really long time. I love meeting people where they are, but the opportunity to get them to that next chapter. and into pushing them to their better self and seeing something they may have not seen in themselves. And so I see a great opportunity for these young kids to be able to see someone like you and say, hey, this is how you become a champion, right? You don't got to do it the way I did it, but there are these routines and behaviors that have followed to get me to a place, right? Because there's guys that have played in the NBA and NFL and different sports that don't have your level of accolades, right? And so there's something that has worked, right? And there was the team but that was an ability that you possess within yourself. And so now that you're a leader and you're a coach and now that you're an entrepreneur, the number one thing is when everybody may not have that deep dive of gut. Like I want to be at the best. Like you said, you didn't want to be a star, but how do we push people to be better than where we met them? And so,
Well, I think that for me, the phrase meeting someone where they are in that moment, it's just the start. Like that's not the finish line.
For sure.
So meeting where you are is where we start. But because you have experienced what you've experienced, just successfully, whether it be in business or even athletics or even as a parent, you know, when you have children, like your kids are not their total self like when they're born, you know, as they continue to grow, like you see characteristics of their personality that you know you can nurture and build and grow. And I think it's the same thing, you know, in coaching is that I'm going to meet you where you are so that we can build a foundation and so that we can establish a relationship of trust. And when the two of you trust like one another, when you are advising, when you are coaching, when you are showing like what is possible, more times than not, whoever you're mentoring or coaching, they're going to follow because they trust, not just based on what you've already done, but how you've invested in them.
Yeah, true. I totally agree. But I'm a pusher. And
pushing is
but
good.
you know what I mean? I'm hard. I want to see that. I want to see that you want it too. I want you to give me back what I'm giving you. And so I think today when we're looking at these young athletes, and I would love your thoughts on the game today, right? Like how are you viewing this new wave, right? Like the athletes, and you know, unapologetically yourself, because I know that you mentor a lot of these young girls or young women. Sorry, I want to be very clear, young women. And how are you taking that and seeing the game for what it's? You talked about it a few times, but how it's grown, not just from a business side, but from a player to player.
Well, when I say being your authentic self, I'm saying being like who you were made to be and not being a follower or feeling like you have to change who you are in order to become a part of a group or to be accepted. Make no mistake, like there is a level of work that is required and a level of discipline. You cannot cheat the work. Like when someone says, oh, you make it so easy, I'm like, but it wasn't. Like I'm a worker. Like everything that you see comes from a foundation of work. Like my success is totally based on that. Maybe you didn't see it, but I'm letting you know that it happened. So like my confidence in all those things is not because someone told me you should be confident. My confidence was because I actually did the work. So when I'm saying like I stay ready so I don't have to get ready, it's because I've been doing the work, preparing for the moment. And, you know, that's the difference between, you know, the new place that we are, you know, in everything that like sometimes the work is like overlooked. I remember seeing an interview with Michael Jordan where he was talking about himself and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and talking about all the work that they did to receive all the things that they had gotten at that point. And nothing that they had received was based on their potential. It was their actuality. So they performed at a high level and therefore they were rewarded. We're in a different space now where sometimes the reward comes before the performance. And I think that that's a very scary place because we are teaching like our young people to work according to what they're going to get versus working to be the best so that you have the opportunity to get whatever you want. So even when we're in this space where that is the reality, the young people that I mentor, like my son, that is not our truth.
Yeah.
And I don't teach that. So just because someone is saying this is the way, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be your way. And you can still get to that space and that place by putting the work first, because that is where the longevity lies. And if you look at it, even in this new landscape, the players that have shown true to have longevity and to play and perform at a high level are all workers.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about LeBron, and whether he should quit, and whether he, at the end of the day, no matter what you say about him and whether he's his authentic self, what you cannot debate is whether he does the work. He is a worker. He invests in his work. He invests in the product that is himself. So the tool that is his body, he puts his money behind it, you know? So at the end of the day, no matter who you think he is or whether you like him or not, he is where he is based on the work and nothing else. And he's been that way since a child. He's been on this platform and gotten all this notoriety. And the reason why he's never fallen off or faltered is because he is built on a foundation of work. And it's just something, in my opinion, that's undeniable.
With all that being said, super, I'm dialed into the work, right? When I look at myself, I think about where people want to put me versus where I'm at. I love it, right? Because there's a box, and then I've colored outside of those lines. You being a Trojan, and then now there's this young phenom. I love, seeing Juju.
That's my baby.
You know
I
what
love
I mean?
Juju.
I just gotta ask you, like Juju, I see her truly being, like, from what I see from the surface, very, very connected, not only to the game, but also connected to community, connected, I know you guys have a close relationship. And what are some of the key components of just a little bit of insight of kind of one piece of advice that you've told her on her next chapter, right? And I don't want to go too deep, but I love watching her because she is the wave, right? And she is someone that I'm looking to see her make changes for all women, but just particularly black girls in her position. I'm excited and just want to know kind of you pouring into her. How does that look?
I mean, Juju is a girl after my own heart in the sense that she is, again, she's built on work. She's always been a worker. Nothing has been given to her. Everything that she's gotten has been earned. But it is just a product of how she's been built. You talk to her mom, you talk to her dad, like her circle, like that is, what they pour into her. Like her, not just being her authentic self, but how kind she is, like how appreciative she is, the amount of gratitude that she shows. She is very humble, uniquely humble, especially like in this landscape. She's shy, like she doesn't like all the attention, that she gets, but she's also very appreciative, like of it. As much as people are grabbing and pulling on her, she's going to stop. She's going to visit with a little girl. She's going to sign an autograph. Like she's going to do all the things that shows how grateful she is that she's gotten the opportunity. But let's not mistake anything. She worked for it and she'll continue to work. It's literally the makeup of who she is. People talk about sometimes, she didn't have a good shooting game. You don't see that after that game that she's just played, 38 of the 40 minutes, she doesn't leave. Like she's in the gym. She goes and changes into her practice gear and she's working out. Like even in a win, we're not talking about in a loss because she doesn't lose much, but she is a worker. And, for that, she's going to have success for a really long time because she's a great human, but she's also built on a very strong foundation of work.
I love that. Work is the key.
Yep.
The key.
So we've talked a lot today about the change and the shift in women's sports since your playing days to today, and we know there's still a lot of disparity in compensation between men's sports and women's sports. And you used the term earlier, blueprint, and I'd say you've really created this architecture around a successful career. You talked about really diving deep into places where you trust people. You trusted David Stern's vision. You are a visionary yourself, and so people will also trust your vision. And part of why we're here today is to figure out what you see in the Amazon Freight partnership that might make space for former athletes that are thinking through how to take that same grit, that same resilience, that same pursuit of excellence, and then turn it into an entrepreneurial pursuit. So I just wondered if you spend a minute talking about how your generation of player has approached sport or approached life after sport, and why this is such an important opportunity to explore.
Well, part of the reason why it's because it's a necessity in a sense that, although as a professional athlete in the WNBA, like you get paid well from a career perspective, it's not at the same compensation level as like most professionals. And, we can talk about all the reason why, but there is a reality to how athletes get paid. And it is the brand itself and how people are engaging with those brands. A lot of people talk about the idea that women, don't get paid enough, or they want it to be comparable to the male counterparts. Those people need to show up. You need to buy tickets. You need to buy gear. You need to go to concessions because bottoms in the seats is what grows the brand. Like it's so much larger than the conversation. So, every time I see an interview or something like that, I just kind of like roll my eyes because I'm like, I haven't seen you. I go to the games. Like I watch the games. Like I haven't seen you there. Become a season ticket holder. Bring your family, bring your daughters, bring your sons. Like that is how you change the landscape of the brand, because when people are showing up in big numbers, those are the things that people want to be a part of. You look at the Lakers. I mean, gosh, season tickets, like it's kind of one of those things that, it never comes up. An open seat comes up like every 20 or 30 years. And it's usually because someone has probably passed away, but the demand for that is what makes the brand so much bigger and so much larger. And that's the kind of support that the WNBA needs. And when that changes, the salary and the compensation will do so. So, for me, it's one of those things that in women's sports, like in general, like opportunity for the masses is necessary. Like they're going to be the upper echelon of players that get paid like really well. Like I was blessed to be like one of those players, but you have to be uniquely set apart. And so much of that has to do like with your talent, and everyone is not the star player on their team or the marquee player on their team. And unfortunately, there is a difference between the two. The slices of pie are not always cut the same. So for women's sports, especially in a league like the WNBA, where, our season is, 4 seasons and 4 months or 5 months. And even though you get paid, you can opt to get paid over a 12-month period. When you look at it like that, the money changes and it looks different, and it changes like lifestyles and just the ability to kind of grow in a way where you feel like you're a professional or that you've achieved the upper echelon in your career. So for me, opportunities like creating a relationship with the Amazon Freight partners is another way for women to like grow in the space and create something that is their own. And for WNBA players, it's necessary because you have to have more than just playing in the WNBA. And it's a lot of the reason why a lot of players go and play overseas, because even though you're playing basketball, it's truly another job. Like you're getting paid by another ownership group that has absolutely nothing to do with the WNBA. So when there's opportunities that are at home on American soil that allow women to stay home, to be with their families, to create a foundation like where they are. I'm like, have at it.
Yeah.
Let's create more spaces so that, female athletes have an opportunity to have true success.
Yeah.
And that the things that they do on the court allow them to grow
off the court.
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's you should touch on, Amazon Freight Partners has been great, but you were looking at a truck. You were looking at some freight yourself, and you have a unique story, which is really why we're here, because so many people deviated from this business, similar to kind of your story. Can you share a little bit of kind of when you were looking at the trucking business and kind of what that looked like for you?
Well, for a lot of athletes, there's a reality to, how you're able to make money. So much of what you do requires you to physically be present, like not mentally, but just like physically. Yeah. So you don't have the opportunity to just go and invest all this time into like building something in a way that creates or amasses this incredible success, because you're required to be present in your profession. Well, at probably about 5-6 years ago, my best friend and I was just having a conversation with him, and I'm like, I think I want to get into the trucking business. He was like, what? Like, you want to drive trucks? I'm like, no, I don't want to drive trucks. I want to own trucks. And it was literally right before COVID. Mm. And, we're having these conversations. So it got to the point where I was reaching out to different trucking companies. There was a former player in the WNBA who had actually started her own trucking business and had a few trucks, and she connected me to some people. And, we were literally shopping for a truck, or just educating ourselves on what kind of truck, what brand, what line, and is it necessary to have a camper, or what does it look like when you're in state versus driving across country? There was just so many different facets to it that, it's not as simple as one would think to just buy a truck and then, you're going to get a dispatcher and then you're just going to be in business. It's so much more than that. And then COVID hit, which then the demand, for just that industry went through the roof. So trucks at the time that we were looking at that were, in the mid 40s to 60s were over $200,000. So it literally changed overnight. But then also the attitude changed too about the people that were the experts in that space, and just how they were in the beginning, so excited about sharing information and becoming a mentor and having you a part of their line. It was an opportunity for them in the sense that's okay, you want to be a part of us, you're going to have to pay, and, yes, you have notoriety and that will be helpful for us. But, at the same time, this is kind of the going rate. Yeah. And it just made us shy away from it a little bit, because it changed, the feeling about it, because it didn't seem as genuine and authentic as it was in the beginning. And, that's how I'm put together. So once you kind of get turned off by something, then it changes, your outlook on it. And it just kind of, I don't know, pushed me away a little bit. So, it was dormant. And then Alvin tells me that he had a conversation with you and had this opportunity. And I was like, great. You mean trucking? Yeah. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, are you kidding me? Do you remember? He's like, of course I remember. That's why I called you right away. So, I'm really excited about this, and it's always great when something aligns with you in a way that you had interest, you had curiosity, or you had passion, in that space. And then, opportunity comes that literally is kind of uniquely built, for you. So that's the feeling that I have about Amazon and the freight partners, and just seeing where this goes.
Well, we got a prize for you today. I got a prize. I don't got a truck, but I got a prize. No, we got some people from Amazon that's going to sit on with us, kind of tell us how we can get into business. One of the key things that, this is about is also what I would like to do. It's not just a conversation. We want to take this beyond the conversation. We want to host a dinner with 10 companies we want to invest in. We want to, well, not 10 companies. We want to look at 10 founders, and we want to look at some companies that we can drive. We want to invest in them. We want to see if we can take an advisory seat or whatever that looks like to scale that business and show that what we can do. So I want to look at those companies, go to dinner. We have a quick, let them pitch assessment process, but they'll pitch to us. And, so this is all encompassing on opportunity to show that, we changed the landscape and we're going to look at this completely different. And so beyond the conversation, a lot of times we just have the conversation. I want to be about action. So we want to find some companies. We want to look at and see which ones that are of interest to you and myself. And I may invest alongside of you. You may do it or find something that is super cool. Kim will do all the vetting on our venture side between Open Venture and Heartbeat Ventures. But today we want to talk about freight. We want to talk about Amazon. We want to talk about what their opportunities could be, where the opportunities for athletes can lie, not just in the WNBA, but the NFL, the Major League Baseball, hockey. Where can athletes see an opportunity for an entrepreneurship with help, right? And so a lot of times entrepreneurship, everybody thinks they're an entrepreneur until they become an entrepreneur. You don't realize what this is. You don't realize what the task is. You're the accounting, you're the marketing, you're the brand, you're all those things, right? And so athletes have been guarded from that, right? Because you didn't go into corporate America. So how does someone like myself tell you that has never worked in corporate America and has only been an entrepreneur? And when my football career didn't go the way I wanted it to go, I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. My feet hit the pavement. I know I heard a lot of concrete, you know what I mean, in my time, because I bled the block a lot of times. But so we just want to bridge that gap, right? And want to give inspiration to everybody else to say, in a time that everybody thinks they're not entrepreneurs, you need help. And so how do we find help? And so I think this is where we're going to go into our next quarter of this and talk to some of our partners and let them educate us on kind of what Amazon Freight really is and what this opportunity could be for us, and how we bridge those gaps.
I think that's amazing. It's kind of like the piece that has been missing so much, like for athletes, so many athletes, not just female athletes, but just across so many sports, like want to get into entrepreneurship and also ownership, but they've rarely had a trusted space to go to for someone to help like navigate and kind of hold their hand through the process. And even myself, like a couple times I've attempted to invest in businesses and got burned because I was ignorant to the process and didn't really have a true understanding of what I was necessarily getting myself into. And then not necessarily knowing the people that were leading the projects. And I've lost a lot of money in doing so. So that's what makes this, what you all are doing, so uniquely amazing, is that it just creates a place of comfort and trust and truth that allows athletes to come into this space and feel good about the direction that they're going, whether they decide to go with that company or not, but they're doing so from a place of wins instead of loss, because you have people that truly have your back and have the information that you need in order to become more educated.
Yeah, I'm not a traditional venture capitalist. I'm a partner, and it's what I've learned along the way and how we invest in companies behind the people that I've trusted to allow us to get there. And so that's really what we're trying to provide. Some of the biggest athletes in the world are my friends. And it's hard to trust people when you go sign this major contract and everybody's behind you looking for money, but you want to invest, you want to do these different things off the court, but you don't have a good source. And so that's really what this is beyond the court, but it's meeting you and then talking about opportunity.
You kind of say it so like matter of factly, but it's just not happening. That's what makes it so cool, that you went through all the trials to have an understanding and become educated, and you're very willing to share, which most people are not. So that's what makes it so cool. I
just want to add to that, because I want to give you your flowers, because it's not just that you're willing to share with other athletes, but also willing to share within the ecosystem of founders, investors like myself and others, because this platform is so powerful and I do think it's important to give you your flowers. It's so powerful
100%.
because it's collaborative.
Yes.
Because we are all elevating. We're all better together versus individually. So thank you. Thank you for being here
Very
today.
cool.
Thank you guys. I think I didn't know, and then when you find out, one of the things that I learned is sharing. It is like, man, it ain't gonna hurt me. Because a lot of times people don't even have the formula anyway. So I just feel good in my heart that I can share. And then you decide with the information, right? Because I know that I didn't know. So when you find out, you go. You know what I mean? And so anybody around me will tell you probably I overshare. But I, it's what I want to do. It's who I am. And if I'm not, we talked about authenticity. If I'm not authentic to myself, I ain't waking up happy. And I'm a lot of things, but one of the things I am is I'm a share and I'm a go getter. And I'm gonna talk some trash along the way. We compete to uplift. So I'm excited. I'm thankful that you guys have allowed me to be here, but I'm excited to see what we can do. Seriously.
Me too.
Christina Wagner, Amazon Freight Partner. You're here with us today. You've been in the business since 2022. Super excited for you to be here, based in Seattle. I think there's a lot for us to learn from you and your success and some of the things that you've done. And Tina being someone that wanted to do this business. Thank you for being here today and ready to listen and learn from kind of what you have experienced in the freight business.
Cool. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Christina, can you tell us a little bit more about how the program works and some of the things that you've kind of navigated through this partnership?
Yeah. So the AFP program is really cool. It's unique for someone who wants to start a business. It's a great way to do it because, that process in general can be really intimidating and overwhelming. But Amazon's created a system and a framework that you just have to follow the steps naturally. Almost like bowling, when you go bowling, you use those bumpers to keep your ball out of the gutter. It's a lot like that. They just keep you going the right direction, which is awesome because in this industry, there's a lot of compliance aspects to it, and it can be really tricky to navigate that world. But Amazon is there to help work with you through it. They provide a lot of the resources that you need. They have support using the business coaches. And so everything is there for you. So honestly, it's kind of like a slam dunk.
Yeah, it's like a slam dunk. I think it's important to we talked about this earlier with Tina. She was excited about this business before the pandemic happened. And, she had all the mentors lined up, everybody ready to give her the keys to the trucks. And COVID happened and things shifted and prices went up. And so she deviated from the business because it became a dog-eat-dog thing. And after you listen to her, she's only doing things that she's passionate about. And so I'll let Tina speak for herself, but this is something that she has been passionate about or thought out, looked into. And so someone like yourself can give her some advice on kind of, leaning in a little bit deeper, the right partners. Some of the things that she actually talked about, you said that's kind of what deterred you is what, kind of how people started to kind of not be so open and change versus now these new set guidelines that kind of paved the work. And the key thing that we kept talking about too earlier was the work. And she immediately came in and said, you'll be successful if you do the work. And that's what we talked about your career and everything that these young players are going through. So you just continuous the cadence of kind of the work.
Yeah. I mean, the mindset of an athlete carries over to this so perfectly. The one thing that Amazon provides and it addresses that hurdle that you faced is with this program, my responsibility is to build the team. So I have Wagner and Company as our company, and we have our own team of CDL drivers. But with the partnership with Amazon, they're providing the Amazon branded tractors, the trailers, we're hauling their freight. So we don't have to worry about, lack of stuff to haul. Like it's consistent. It's there. The work just needs to get done. And so my biggest responsibility is to keep a fully staffed team of quality drivers that are, showing up on time, getting the work done. And that's essentially the gist of it right there. And what's cool with an opportunity like this, when you're starting your own business, it's tough to find something where you can be profitable your first year. Yeah. And with this, right out the gate, you're scaling up quickly. It's a lot of hard work. It does get easier. Yeah. I'm a one-woman show and I'm doing it. because
I
of
love
all
that.
of the support that Amazon provides.
Well, I was curious as to how you got started. What was kind of the motivating factor? What inspired you?
So I had never heard of this program until my friend from college, Shannon Rhodes, the owner of Roads on Roads, she started the program a couple years before I got into it. And at the time, I was actually the director of a merchandising department for a big beverage company. And I was super stressed out. COVID had its impacts. And I was struggling. It was also a male-dominated industry. I was struggling in my role to be heard for the things that I needed to properly support my team to effectively do our job. And those are the frustrations that I was venting, I think, one day to Shannon. And she was like, have you ever thought about becoming an AFP? Because the work you're doing here and leading this team, that would carry right over into this kind of thing. And I was like, I don't have logistics or trucking experience. Like, how would I even do it? And she's like, you don't even need to worry about that. As long as you have the right mindset, you know how to put in the work, you know how to lead teams, that's the main focus. And Amazon helps support you with everything else. And so I took a deep breath and was like, okay, I'm listening. How do I get started? And so she put my name in the hat to get that conversation going. And then, I was off in the running.
Wow.
That's really, really, so how big is your team today?
We have about 30 drivers. So I have 15 trucks right now. So each of those trucks is contracted where you have 2 drivers assigned to each truck. And then the way Amazon does it is you get an extra truck. So 1 truck per 5 that you have as a perma-loaner. So if you have any trucks that are down for maintenance issues or mechanical issues, or it's just an extra truck that you have on hand so that you can keep things moving. Because stuff happens, maintenance happens, mechanical breakdowns, and we don't want to have a reason to not keep those trucks going and drivers driving.
Got it. So what was the cost of entry, if you don't mind? So you didn't start off at 15 trucks. You started off, where did you start off? Did you start off with 15 trucks?
Nope. So we started off with 3.
Okay.
And it was a quick scale up over the course of 3 months. The goal was to keep adding a couple of trucks every couple of weeks. And I just did my best to keep up with that. When it comes to the cost of entry, though, they want you to have a minimum of $40,000 available on hand. And you're not paying that to Amazon. You're using those funds to essentially do all of your hiring, start paying your initial drivers, just all of the things that go into just starting the business.
Got it.
I would probably recommend having maybe a little bit extra on hand. When we launched, we were going into the winter season. And that meant there were some extra costs involved and things that I could set up for the trucks to make sure they were prepared. But also, what I learned quickly with that ramp going so fast is I was just hiring. And it was my focus. And, when you're a one-woman show, you're doing the hiring, you're doing the onboarding, the training. And when you're onboarding drivers, CDL drivers, there's a lot that goes into it. And this was one of my first moments of what am I doing? Because we partner with JJ Keller, which is our safety compliance experts, and they're phenomenal at helping out with that. But when you have multiple people in the onboarding phase to join your team, there's a lot to keep track of. And they're helping you manage, MVRs for drivers, drug screens, reviewing their applications. There's just so much. And you have to get all these things done before they can actually be eligible to drive for you.
One of the things that immediately comes to my thought when you're talking about drivers is insurance.
Yeah.
And so how are you, insuring, what does that look like? Insurance for these drivers, things happen.
Great point. So the way Amazon's done it, like we said, they have the framework already set up for you. So we use a company called McGriff. Amazon has all of that set up, and they are essentially insuring all of our drivers and all of our trucks.
Got it.
So I don't have to worry as much about those details of the business. It's already done. I just got to get it set up and keep drivers, actively listed.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I asked, when you think about an athlete, right, and it's attractive, they're limiting liability. And so when you think about insurance, you want to be protected. And an athlete trains, they know how they can protect themselves. When you're jumping into a new business, you want to make sure that there's levels of protection, right? So you're depending on other individuals, right? Like your teammates, these become your teammates. And so the reason why I ask for insurance, because there needs to be a trusted factor on the back end if something does go wrong. Not that we're looking for worst case, but just looking at business, that's where my mind immediately went was, how am I going to be safe? And how do other athletes get excited about this? Because they're already afraid. They're already afraid to take that risk. So those are things that get people excited about, especially athletes excited about kind of jumping into something like this and kind of scaling it and pushing it faster.
What's been cool for me and my team, and one of the alluring factors, is the fact that we still have that small team mindset. So everyone gets to know each other. We have that vibe. But you also have Amazon, and they've got it all figured out.
And what's your goal, right? Like you're at 15 now.
Yeah.
What's the next goal?
I want to grow as big as Amazon will allow.
Yeah.
So being based out of Seattle, the demand might not necessarily be at that location. I'm open to other domicile cities. I could expand that way. There's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
And this is also an industry that's evolving.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to just be open and fluid to wherever direction it goes. I'm on board that train.
And all that you've said, the things that have been consistent is the opportunity, the support. But more than anything, what excites me is that you seem so happy and that you're really enjoying like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, for athletes, that is so much a part of like what we do. Like you're literally every day getting to wake up and do something that you truly love and enjoy doing. And this is the first time that we've like met, but I can see like your excitement and just you're happy at like what you're doing and in the space that you're in right now. And that's inviting.
That is.
Well, in that past job when I was a director of merchandising, I was limited by executive leadership and the decisions they made for me and my team. In this, I'm empowered to make the choices I want to make for my team, my people, take care of them the way that I want to do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the most fulfilling job I can possibly have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to ask the question or say this. You've talked about how great it is, right? And the beautiful things and how exciting it is. But what are some of the hurdles? What are some of the things that, you know what I mean? Like just some things that so people don't go into this, athletes are going to be super excited about this. I'm sure Tina's sitting here rethinking like, okay, this is a real opportunity. What are the things that are the unexpected? Give us a few things that kind of may catch us by surprise.
Yeah. Well, in this role, I mean, anything can happen. You're dealing with humans, and you have to honestly enjoy problem solving. Every day is something different. The biggest challenges when it came to launching was just being one person and trying to do it all. So in those first few months, I was working 7 days a week, minimum 12 hours a day, constantly doing something for the business. And I was all over the place, back and forth, working at my home office, going to the yard where all the trucks are kept, just trying to keep things moving and be as supportive as I could be for those initial drivers I was bringing on. And then the hard part too with that was, as a new company, I didn't have the infrastructure created yet to train these new drivers. So I was really blessed from the fact that I had Shannon Rhodes, the owner of Roads on Roads, available, and her team was well established. And so they were so kind to help me out. I got to borrow some of their trainers, put my new drivers in the trucks with her people as I could build up and grow. And I don't know how I would have done it without her.
That's awesome.
I like the fact that, this is going to give that particular person or athlete to understand that it's going to take work. There's a lot of tools, but if you're willing to put in the work, there's success on the other side of that.
Definitely.
And that's what it sounds like. And to Tina's point, you look very happy. You're smiling.
Authentically happy.
Yeah, authentically happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that speaks volumes. Tina, when you originally thought about getting into freight, where did that come from though? Like when, you said, hey, this was before COVID, pre-COVID, right? And you were like, hey, I'm interested in doing these trucks. And was it just something you had saw? Was there someone you had saw success in this business before? Or, where did it come from?
Well, one of my dad's best friends, they met like in the kindergarten. In kindergarten, I affectionately refer to him as my uncle. For a career, he was in the business of truck driving, and just kind of fascinated like by that, but also the fact that being a former WNBA player, it's necessary to have things working like outside of the WNBA. You could have an amazing career, but it's not financially supportive like for a lifetime, even though I literally played 17 seasons in the WNBA in order to maintain the lifestyle that I wanted to have, I had to go into a second career.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point, especially when you've had success at a certain level, that you want to be in charge. You don't want to be limited by the structures that someone else is putting in place.
Yeah.
You've worked so hard to a point that you're like, I want to make decisions for myself. Like, I want to create a business or a place or space to treat people the way I wanted to be treated, to give them a voice and an avenue to also be successful, but do it in a way that it's enjoyable. Like for me, we talked about just kind of your own personal constitution. Like, I don't do things or stay in places too long that don't make me happy or don't speak to, the person that I am, and that I genuinely wake up every day excited about going to work, to the point that it feels like it's not work.
Yeah.
You're just doing something that you truly enjoy doing. And then also, like, as much as I am a guy's girl, I'm also a girl.
Yeah.
So I want to create spaces for women to be in a place that they have like a comfort zone, but also are doing something that's not traditionally a space or place for women.
Yeah, that's really, really, I love that. So in this program, what's the onboarding process? Is there, do you go online and sign up? Like, what does that look like? When Shannon Rhodes on Rhodes kind of gave you that, we giving her a lot of shout outs.
She deserves it.
Yeah. What was that onboarding process? Does she have to, invite you? Was there like a person she puts you in contact with? How does that look for the average person or individual or athlete that doesn't have access? What's that process look like?
I believe anyone can submit interest and get that process started. For me, because I did have Shannon, she did submit my information to, I think, her business coach, and that helped me get noticed, essentially. Yeah. But other than that, the process for me was the same as it is for everybody else. And there are multiple steps throughout their kind of interview process to actually get through and accepted into the program. And it was pretty intense. You go through the process of writing, multiple essay format style questions that I had to complete. I know there was even a virtual interview portion where it was being recorded, but you weren't speaking to anyone. And so it was kind of awkward. And then there was also a multiple panel.
You said speaking to people?
But
I got that.
It was virtual. Though. There was no one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, there was no one there to talk to, so it was kind of awkward.
All right,
but then you do move on to actually talking to people, and there are, I think, 5 people that I had to go through back-to-back interviews with. And once I got through all of that,
that's
then
when
you have to wait, and see if you were
accepted.
accepted.
Me in on that part.
You're the closer.
I'm the closer.
Yeah, that's where I shine too. It was good.
All
the other stuff.
Writing essays.
I know.
I'm out.
And those are the things almost.
She can help me write the essays.
But those are the things that almost deterred me from trying to go for it. Essentially, it was intimidating.
Yeah.
But I just was like, you know what? What do you have to lose? Might as well go for it and see where it takes you. So did it. Here I am. Once I got accepted into the program, I did wait a year before I was able to launch my business.
Got it.
So you have to wait until the time is right. The demand is there. They've got it set up for you.
That's really, really dope.
Cool. So, Christina, I have a question for you. Like, now that you've kind of gone through all the like steps and the trials and tribulations of just becoming acclimated to the trucking business, what are your hours like now?
So it's still evolving. I'm still a one-woman show, but things have calmed down a bit, which is nice. I have a little more flexibility with life, which is great. I've got time, go get my nails done, which is a nice perk. Self-care matters. But it's still busy. It's still 7 days a week. When you've got an interview you want to get done, doesn't matter if it's Sunday morning, you got to get it done to get those people on board. But it's much smoother. It's much easier. I'd say actual hours spent working dedicated, I would say between 20 to 30 doing the tasks that the business demands. And then there's just additional time spent because it is what you make it. And as much energy as you want to put into it is how you're going to grow and how successful your team's going to be. So I tend to go above and beyond, spending more time at the yard, seeing my team, making sure they have everything they need and they feel supported. I think it's important. But my goal is to start branching out and identifying some leaders on my team and people who want to step up, and I can teach them some of the administrative responsibilities and how to lead the team and not just be a trainer, but be maybe an operations manager.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can step back a little bit and maybe oversee everything while they're really doing more of the day-to-day grind. But that's an active process that I'm in right now, trying to identify the right people.
But even though you've grown so much in such a short period of time, you're still like 3-4 years young, right?
Yeah.
Like you're still in the beginning.
We've only
processes of it.
actually been in business for just over a year.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, wow.
The process started in 2022.
Oh, wow.
But then working through everything, it takes time. It's not an overnight process.
Okay.
So 2024 was big for you.
Yes.
Wow.
Huge.
Huge.
Okay. I like that.
Yes.
Huge. I love
2025 is going to look good too.
Okay. I may need to become a partner of yours. Finish up every. Nah, I'm kidding. But yeah, we definitely should figure out this freight business. This sounds very appetizing. Very appetizing. Not only I love it for people that have a true entrepreneur spirit, but there's tools. I had to figure out everything by myself. There was no help. That, and I also wasn't looking for help, but I also didn't know where to look for help. You know what I mean? And so I love the fact that there's so many different tools and so many different, and a trusted partner that will there's guided success and almost incubated internal success that you kind of know that there's things it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so athletes kind of like regimen and kind of, routine and some of those
Clear
things.
expectations.
Clear expectations.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's one thing that Amazon does very well.
Yeah.
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 So when it comes to the ramp up, they want you to be successful, but they also want you to push yourself. And I excel in that kind of environment, so it works for me. And they also provide, all of the pieces to the puzzle are there for you. So there's no mystery. You just have to use it effectively, stay efficient with your time, organized, manage your time well, and you'll be successul.
Yeah.
So when it comes to ramping up that quickly, anyone can do it. You just got to follow the steps, trust the process, and you'll get through it.
So you started with 3 trucks, right? But then you've been in business for 1 year and now you're at 15.
Yeah.
So how much time in between? Was it based on the
quick.
success that you were having? Or is it just like...
They mapped it out to be the first 3 months. And it was also during peak. So peak for Amazon is October through the end of December.
Okay.
And so I was launching mid-October. And so every couple of weeks I was getting more trucks. And as long as I could keep up with the hiring to fill those trucks, the growth kept happening. It was a little more challenging in the Seattle market for hiring. So that wasn't as fast as I would have liked, but I just stayed diligent every day working towards that goal. And so it was probably a month delayed before I got to my full capacity, essentially. But we got there. And ever since then, we've been able to maintain full trucks, full team. All of it's gone very smoothly. But yeah, that initial phase of ramping up that quickly, it's intense.
Oh, it's fast. I know.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 3 years. She said a year.
No, literally, because the date was that I recall was 2022. So I'm thinking like now we're going into 2025. It's like, wow.
And it was a different experience for me than it was for Shannon when she started her company. And so you never know how it's going to be. I think it matters the time of year that you get on board and launch. But yeah, you got to be prepared for that.
Christina, we really appreciate you for coming here and sharing kind of your success and some of the things that you've seen. And we really want to dive deep with the AFP team a little, to get more understanding of kind of how Tina can, and myself now, can get involved in this. And but really thank you for your time and looking forward to see your continued success in the AFP program.
Thank you. And I'm happy to pay it forward too. Everyone's been so helpful for me. If anyone else wants to join the team, I'm happy to help.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank
you. You were very informative.
Thank you.
In a light, you were smiling a lot. You're excited. Tina called it. She was like, "You're genuinely happy. You look genuinely happy."
I am.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard work, but I must like hard work too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're in good company.
Yeah.
We all kind of feel the same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We talked about that a lot, the work.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the mantra of the day. Loving the work will get you there every time.
Yeah. Take pride in what you do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank
You
you.
were great. Thank you.
Yolanda and Dorcas, thank you guys so much for being here. It's a true pleasure to have you guys here to kind of give us a deep dive into what AFP looks like.
Thank you for having us. Super excited to be here. My name is Dorcas, and I'm the marketing manager for the Amazon Freight Partner. And there I help support a couple things. First is just acquisition, so bringing great partners like Christina into the program. And then once we bring in our AFPs, I help them hire great drivers, which, as she shared, the key part of her employee base. And then my team also develops all the cool creative content that we use in our acquisition campaigns, within our program, and all of the activations to help keep the programs engaged in AFP, knowledgeable, informed, and just having fun in the work.
I love that. And Yolanda, can you give us a little bit of kind of what you do and what you're
Sure, sure. So I am a senior business coach within the Amazon Freight Partner Program, and I currently manage 20 entrepreneurs who are in the program,
Wow.
and they're based in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And my main role is to assist and guide them as they build and grow their business. My biggest objective is to work right alongside the AFPs
Mhm.
and help them think about their business strategy and their business planning. But it's also to help them with all of the compliance and program policies that we have within Amazon.
I think it's important that, we have individuals that have a deep dive understanding, because talking to Christina, we saw a level of excitement that we hadn't seen. And talking to Tina before you guys got here, she was very, very interested in this business, but then came into a lot of hurdles, right? And it kind of derailed her from thinking about getting her trucks. And there's a lot of things that you don't know as a former athlete jumping into this business. But what it sounds like through Christina and her pure, authentic smile on her face is that there's been a lot of help along the way. There's a lot of work along the way, which has been the mantra of the day. But speaking to that, can you guys give us a little bit more insight of kind of what the onboarding process truly looks like for you guys? How do you vet who you guys put into the program? What does that look like? And what are you guys looking for when you think about this?
Yeah, I can talk a lot about the vetting process, and I'll pass it over to Yolanda, who can talk about onboarding. What we look for, it's not necessarily industry experience, because we believe you can learn from anywhere. With athletes specifically, we look for like the grit, the discipline, the coachability, we think is all transferable to Amazon Freight Partner. What we really look for is people leadership, because your primary role is managing your team and helping them deliver results. So that's number one. Also, just some basic financial acumen, understanding how balance sheets work to manage your business. And then just that motivation, that grit, willingness to learn and get in and do the work. And once you're identified, we have an accelerator program, which is a 12-week training program to help you learn those fundamentals, not only about the industry, but also about just the financial, what it takes to manage a business. Especially within trucking, as you might have learned, it's very complicated, like compliance from a regulation perspective. And so we help you learn all of those things and help you do the things you need to set up your business from there.
Dorcas, can you just, explain or educate us on why this program and the type of talent that you guys are looking for, especially women in a male-dominated industry and also women of color? Like, how did that fit into the why?
Definitely. Our why is, how do we help Amazon deliver the customer promise, which a lot of packages very fast. We need carriers to help do that. And so how do we do that while, one, supporting small businesses, so helping small businesses to develop and thrive within the space. So in that work, we intentionally looked at how do we be more inclusive in our marketing efforts, that when you learn about AFP, you see people who look like you and have backgrounds like you, and you can see, I like to say, authentically aspirational, people who are actually in the program doing well, and also create an aspirational picture for what you might be. And I think that's important, because without that, it's difficult to see yourself in that position and think it's something for me. So whether it's in our marketing, also in our application, all of our conversation process, it's recognizing that all AFPs won't look alike. They won't necessarily come from the same background, but they do have that willingness to learn, willingness to work, and then willingness to grow. And so, of course, like for Black women specifically, that's a demographic I obviously have a personal passion point. Yeah. And then within the demographic space, there's an opportunity across both gender as well as ethnicity, race. We look even beyond that to veteran status, ability levels, to help make sure everyone has an equitable opportunity to be in and then succeed at the program.
And so then from there, Dorcas, you throw it to Yolanda. And when you on board and do all this, how do you, your role comes in,
Sure.
Obviously. Yeah.
Sure. So after a partner such as Christina, who you guys met, has made it into the program, and they are assigned a business coach, such as myself.
Mhm.
And I like to say we're kind of, one part coach, but also one part counselor and therapist, because as Christina mentioned, this is hard work and you are going to be hands-on. You're going to be on the ground working with your team. So as a business coach, my responsibility is to drive that accountability that's needed, work with them on any of their financial and economic goals that they have, also to ensure that they stay compliant within Amazon's needs, but also on the DOT side. So we want the AFPs to be the most compliant trucking companies out there. So I have this acronym, ABH, always be hiring.
Always be hiring.
Always
Yeah.
be hiring.
Yeah.
So we work with the partners, and the best part of my job is when I get to grow the partners. So we launch them with 3 tractors. And ultimately, we'd love to see them grow to 15 or 20 or whatever that capacity ultimately ends up.
So interesting for me, as a personal question to you, it's just like, where did you learn all of this? Like you seem like you had a trucking background, like you know what I mean? Like, so, did you teach yourself this, or was this the role that you dove deep into? I'm very interested into kind of how you became so well-versed at leading, the trucking industry right now.
Sure. So it's a combination of everything you said. So I actually joined Amazon in 2022. So I have not actually been in this space that long, but you do learn as you go. And you don't need a trucking background to succeed in this business. And I didn't necessarily need a trucking background to understand how to manage leaders and to encourage and to coach. I can learn kind of all the tactical things, just like a partner is going to learn. But once you have that, as a business coach, you need to be a mentor. You need to be a leader as well. And so that just comes inherently from all the other experiences that I've had within corporate America before I came to Amazon.
Oh, wow. I mean, the way you guys are talking about this, it seems so easy. I've had, no, seriously, because, similar to what Tina said, I have some friends that, have owned trucks, and then they went into the problem of there was no loads, there's no, and you're buying, these expensive things, vehicles, and then you can't put them on the road. And so, what you guys have seemed to, obviously Amazon being the pusher, a tremendous amount of success, right? And there's this level of success. And so one of the things that was exciting about Christina was knowing that though she was started in 2022, she's only been in business a year, has 15 trucks. What does success look like? What's a range of a number, your business can kind of scale to at one point or another?
There are lots of variables that go into that. So I'll say a couple things. The one thing that the AFPs, I think, own when it's related to growth is their performance. And the first, most important layer of performance is safety. Like, are your drivers and you able to execute the loads that you have at a safe level? And that's not only safety to protect your drivers. We want everyone to come home at the end of the day. And also, we are key players in a broader community, and we want to keep everyone safe there too. Yeah. So if you're able to deliver safe performance, which is really on-time delivery, those types of things, that's what makes you, what Yolanda said, eligible for growth. The thing that needs to match up there is demand within the location. You mentioned like finding work. That's one of the benefits of the AFP program. The AFPs don't have to invest in finding the work, like Amazon has that. That's kind of reliable, but it's not necessarily where you are. So making sure that matching that demand to where the AFPs are performing well is how you ultimately grow.
Very, very cool. And the reason why I ask is when you're attracting athletes that have earned a lot of money, some have and some haven't, they're going to be excited about, entrepreneurship and, being their own boss and, coming to run something, but they're also looking to kind of either maintain their lifestyle or kind of build something. And so that was the real reason behind the question, because we want to, make sure that we're attracting the right people and giving people a hope that, this is the best opportunity for them and versus going to start it by themselves. You know what I mean? And so, yeah.
But what I can tell you, though not real specifically the number of trucks, is just kind of ranges in terms of revenue and like profit. So typically our AFPs start, and this is what we're thinking about, between 5 to 10 tractors. They're generating between $1.5 and $3.5 million in revenue. And that typically comes out to between $100,000 and $300,000 in profit every year. And And of course, that depends upon how you manage your business. And then, of course, like your growth potential. That might change based upon where you're located, how your performance, and those things.
For sure. Do you guys set the rate for the drivers, or is that personal? You can pay your drivers whatever you...
So the owners, the entrepreneurs, are the owners of their own companies.
Mm-hmm.
And those drivers that they hire are their employees. They are
Right.
not Amazon employees. We do not set their rates.
Mm-hmm.
We have some minimum standards that
Mhm.
are out there, but each AFP sets their own pay rates for their drivers.
Got it.
So we require that AFPs hire their drivers as W-2 employees, so that they have that longer term stability, guaranteed income, and offer PTO, healthcare benefits, those things that are typically atypical in the driver space, even hourly wage, where typically drivers get paid by the mile. So all those things are designed to make transportation a better place to work as a driver and an owner.
Yeah. So you guys, this may be a stupid question, but you guys say tractor. So what does that mean? Because I'm from Texas. You live in Texas. And I think about a tractor. I actually think about a real tractor on the field, moving some hay, moving some stuff around.
That is
So I think I understand, but I want to be very clear what a tractor
fair.
looks like,
So I am also from Texas. So
Okay,
I
yeah.
get it. I get it. And my dad was a country boy.
Yeah.
So before I came here, I would have said truck as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
So when you think about the tractor, that is the unit that is in the front of what you think of as a truck.
Mm-hmm.
Those tractors then hook up trailers, they hook
Got
up
it.
intermodal containers to them, and then you have that full, what you think of as a truck.
Okay.
But what we allocate to the partners is that engine,
Got
is
it.
that tractor. And when you think about that, just as you mentioned, that is the most expensive part about being in the trucking business. But the amazing part about the AFP program is that if you are the best of the best and you do end up getting into the program, then we provide those assets. So you are not making that capital investment. We're making that capital investment.
That's great. I'm ready. I mean, I think me and Tina already decided that we're in. So if you guys can accelerate us to the level, I mean, you don't have to ask me twice. I'm already in. No problem. Like we in.
we're in.
We in. So
It's the,
yeah,
it's the infrastructure that makes it so inviting because, like Boss and I, we talked about earlier, was that the most difficult part for me was trusting the information that I was like getting so that I could build an infrastructure. But it almost became expensive just to find the information. So before you're even talking about trucks and things like that, people that were already in the industry is like, this information costs,
yeah.
just to educate you, to allow you, or they were bringing you in.
Everybody
under
becomes
them.
a consultant.
Yeah, under them. So as much as you are doing all this work, you're not necessarily benefiting until you get to a point that they've released enough information for you to be educated and then be able to venture out like on your own. So the work itself is not the part that's easy, but the foundation and the ability to have stability as you're building the process, it seems like that's what Amazon is doing to allow you to start, like to successfully start. And how you go from there is based on the amount of work that you put into it and how you foresee yourself like growing. So that's the part that's so exciting for me, because trying to start on my own, that was the most difficult part, like just having a true understanding, like how you build and how you grow, but then also trusting the information. I would talk to one person and then there would be some variation in the information that I got from the person that I spoke before that. And then when you have the next conversation, it's a combination of both, but not exactly the same. But the common denominator was whoever was giving you the information was benefiting, no matter how much information that they gave you. And it didn't necessarily mean that you were. So that's, for me, the exciting part about possibly becoming a Amazon freight partner is that the education, the infrastructure, and the support, like more than anything.
And as you guys know, this is Meet the Athlete. And a lot of times what we've talked about earlier is trust. Having, everybody typically when you're at the top of your game, if you made it to the professional level, you see a lot of people, right? Because of not only your status, but your financial status. And so trust is a key component to what this is. And so it's talking about information. When you can just provide trusted information that is unwavering, you build, right? And so really wanting to echo everything that we talked about today is really so many athletes don't trust because, they're for rightful reasons. And so as you guys sit here, you're giving a trust to the individuals that are going to look at this, or Tina or myself, to say, this is a program that we should probably really consider, right? And so that's what's exciting.
Yeah. And I think Amazon is definitely a trusted partner in terms of the work and in terms of the industry. And also I recognize that the program is changing. It's growing. One of the things that Amazon does constantly is innovate. And as a partner, we get to innovate together. So if an AFP comes into the program, things are going to change. We're going to change based upon your feedback, based upon your ideas, based upon what's not working and what is working. So that definitely is part of the program.
Can you guys tie in? Can you tell me about Adam Riggs, MLB player, kind of how that's been? Yeah.
Yeah. So Adam Riggs is an Amazon Freight partner in the Houston domicile.
Okay.
So I actually manage Houston, as I mentioned. And so Adam is one of my AFPs. Adam joined the program actually before I joined Amazon.
Okay.
But Adam joined the program with no trucking experience whatsoever. And he went through the program the training program that Dorcas mentioned, our accelerator program. Okay. So he learned everything about the AFP program prior to launching through that accelerator training class. And then once he came in, he was a performer. He met the safety metrics. He met the on-time metrics. He met the acceptance metrics. And that enabled him to grow. And he's actually one of our largest partners in the Houston domicile right now. So the learning is constant, and it's got to be constant because at Amazon, it's going to change in the next quarter. I promise you.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, listen, to hear people have success in a business that is not, common to us is super, super impressive and something very appetizing. And so being from Houston, she lives in Houston. Yeah, we should have a conversation. I'm putting myself in on her stuff already. I'm like, I'm in. Just put me in. But so how would you go about getting started in a program like this, Dorcas, if you can share some insight?
Yeah. So the first thing I would direct you to is our landing page. That's where you can find all the information. And I'm sure the URL is below, but I'll also tell you, freightpartner.amazon.com. There you can learn more about the program and also request more information. And if there's an opportunity within your physical location, you'll move forward with the application process. If not, you'll get put on a waiting list, and that will pose you for further communication once the spot does open up. The process, just to summarize, it's an application, basic information about yourself, then a virtual interview, then a submission of a business plan, how you would operate your business, different things you'll think about. And then if you make it to the next step, it's multiple interview loops with different members of the Amazon team that would then decide whether or not you are inclined for the opportunity. If you are, most likely you'll go on a bench, similar to sports. So you'll wait on the bench until there is a need in your geography, and then we will notify you. But while you're on the bench, you're not just waiting. You're also more training, like Yolanda mentioned, and then just making sure you know what it's going to take to launch, have all the information you'll need so that you're ready to play when you're called in.
Love that.
Can either one of you educate us on just the start process? When we were talking to Christina, she mentioned a little bit about being in Seattle and just the opportunity being a lot different than being in bigger cities or, where the demand is a little higher. Like, how does that start? Do you become educated first in just the business in general? Do you first become educated on building your team so that then you're able to educate them? So can you just enlighten us a little bit about just how the process works?
Sure. So at Amazon, we have this mantra that every day is day one. So I'm going to tell you every day is going to be a day one and you're going to be learning. But from an AFP perspective, when we launch you with a certain number of tractors. The expectation is, because you've gone through all the training, you're launching this business. It's just you, theoretically, initially. And maybe you do hire a dispatching company so that you get some sleep. But you don't really build your team until you understand all facets of the business. And then once you've grown and the economics support that that's when partners start bringing in and growing their team and adding an operations manager, or maybe adding someone who's going to coach the drivers on safety instead of it being you. Because initially, let me tell you, it's going to be you. You are going to be the coach in every aspect of this business.
And as far as geography is concerned, so when you first submit your request for information, you put in your zip code and you're matched to opportunities based upon that zip code. So when you are selected to launch, it's because we have demand in that zip code. And so especially at launch, you're expected to be in that location, not only for the training, but for the hiring, the recruiting on ground. As AFP, you're expected to be able to understand the details of the operation, what the maintenance task is. You might not need to know how to do it, but you need to understand it and be able to challenge your maintenance team or your drivers if they aren't doing it right. So the expectation is that you are hands-on with that operation.
This might be an out-of-the-box question, but as an Amazon Prime member, does like the demand or like the ability to fulfill the demand change like in the delivery process? Because I've noticed in my area that like I used to be able to get like deliveries so quickly and at a certain time. And now they've gone to like 2 days or like 3 days, when before it was like next day delivery. So when the delivery time changes like that, does that mean that there's a necessity for like more AFP or just freight in that area? Or is it just like where the supply itself is coming from?
That's a good.
That's further.
No, that's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. There are actually two different Amazon programs.
Yes.
Okay.
So like what we call our sister program, what we were modeled after is the delivery service partner. So they manage the delivery time, the ability to deliver 1 day, same day, those packages. What Amazon Freight manages is what Amazon calls the middle mile. So it's moving the freight in between warehouses.
Is there anything else you guys would like to share for the people to know about AFP? Or I know we're excited about it. I know, we really want to have a real conversation, all jokes aside. But if there's anything else you guys feel like the people need to know about AFP, Amazon Freight Program, please feel free to do so now. You guys have been absolutely amazing. There's a lot of learning. I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I'm excited to just kind of really learn more about all the other people that have had success and kind of what you guys are doing, and more ways that we can continue to build and educate and inform individuals to build a trusted source of opportunity outside of the game and or whatever you're doing, but the game of life in itself. But athletes particularly, because this is about athletes, and share as much as you feel like people need to know.
Yeah, I would say one, thank you for this opportunity. I think this is a great space. One of the things I'm most excited about the program is our willingness to try new things. This program is a new idea. Reaching out to athletes as an audience is a new idea. We found success in it, and I think that breeds more success and just the opportunities to might we be more inclusive and bring different people into the space across all the different layers we talked about. And I think this is just a new opportunity for us to do that and to continue to think about like what's the next generation of newness that we.
And I think I want to stress the same way that we look for elite athletes. If you listen to how Dorcas described the process to get in here, our Amazon Freight partners are the elite owners. It is not easy to get in here, but if you make it through the process, you are kind of the best of the best. And so, I mean, what better way to test that market also with athletes, right?
Yeah. Well, I love everything you guys said. I think there's an opportunity too on the content side. I'm going to just say it. I think we can make some engaging, fun content around kind of what you guys are building to get people excited. That's the business I'm in too. But no, partnership for sure. But no, I found it very, very interesting that we were talking to Tina, and then you guys were here, and her just who she is and what she was interested in, and this aligning with exactly what she was interested in before. And so excited to kind of see what comes to life from this.
Serendipity.
Yeah, truly.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's how the universe works, brings it together.
That's
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, we've been working with sports, the NFL specifically, got MLB, we have former NBA alumni as well, where we were like, how do we expand? How do we think about WNBA, which of course is like top of the news now. And of course with the gender work that we've been doing in general, this is a way to just reach so many important audiences.
Yeah.
Perfect synergy.
Well, thank you, ladies, both, Yolanda and Dorcas, for being here. And obviously, Tina, thank you. And I'm looking forward to more, truly. This has been a
Likewise.
blessing.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being on. Yeah.
And presenting such a great opportunity. I just see a future for so many more female athletes to just kind of expand
Absolutely.
like outside of the sport, which I think is necessary, not just because like of gender equity and pay and compensation, but just the opportunity to be more. I love that.
In a very non-traditional world
Yes, ma'am.
that we're in, trucking.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you guys more than you know. Thank you so much for being partners to us and sharing this information, and really looking forward to seeing how we can do some things together. So Tina, we just did a lot. We talked about a lot of things that you've accomplished and how great you are and some of the things you're looking to do. But what was really, really great to me today was the Amazon Freight Partners. And, you know, you actually being someone that looked at this business pre-COVID and now to be here today and learn all these new things about the business. Do you feel more comfortable? Did they give you enough information? Give me like your honest opinion and feedback. Like, is this something we should pursue? And I say we, because I feel like I want to be in with you. So, you know what I mean? But what's your thoughts?
Absolutely. I definitely think that the Amazon Freight Partner relationship is something that we should pursue. What stands out the most is the infrastructure and the support that they provide. As we know, because we've all at some point decided to be entrepreneurs, presently speaking.
Yeah.
The difficulties of just kind of starting like from the ground up and building a foundation in order to be successful, like learning, you know, while in the process. And what the Amazon Freight Partner Group does is that it takes away like that educating yourself. They're providing the education and the foundation right away, and they're supporting you throughout. So you get comfortable. You know, we talked about like the work, like the confidence comes from the work. So they provide the information and allow you to do the work, and that the work that you put in allows you to have a certain level of success, and that success can be endless. You know, the work that you put in, the quality of work that you produce on a regular basis allows you to grow like in a great way. So I have not experienced, you know, any kind of opportunity that gives you so much like in the beginning and the level of support. So I'm excited for us.
I appreciate the us. I learned a lot. I mean, they gave me like trust that I didn't even know I needed. You know, when we were talking about this, it was really, really a deep dive into kind of what they offer and leading you to success. And I thought, you know, want to thank Kim for finding the partners, but overall, like this is what athletes are looking for. Right. Athletes are looking for their first trusted source. Right. Because it's hard. Again, we talk about how hard it is to trust when you've been known or you've made money. And so everybody's coming around you for the wrong reasons. You know, when you have a program and a company like Amazon that's willing to say, we're going to take some of those headaches away. Here's the work that we know you're used to and being elite. Go be really good at that. Go build your team. Go be a great leader. We're going to handle all the other certain logistics. And you still got to run your company. That's what I heard. But we're going to give you tools. You know, there's a direct path to success with Amazon. And so I'm excited about it. I came in excited, but I'm like over the top, like what the opportunity could really be.
For sure. I mean, how many situations have we walked into where the how-to is basically taken away? Like it's given to you. They're giving you a blueprint of how to be successful, but also providing the support. And all you have to do is do the work. And we're in the company of workers, you know? So if you continue to work at an elite level, which in most cases you're known for, then you're almost guaranteed to have success. So it's a great partnership, in my opinion, to be in. So I'm ready to, stay ready so I don't have to get ready, sit the bench and wait for my number to be called.
Yeah, let's have a conversation with Dorcas and Yolanda about you truly being a part of this program seriously, and then how they follow you. What does that look like? Like what showing like what we talked about to that. And so let's go do that. Like I'm ready. I think this is now top of the year, ready to go. Who you are. You've done a lot of amazing things. I think there's a new chapter. I want to see what this chapter looks like.
Me too.
I will just add that, it's who you are and also where you are. Amazon talked a lot about the need to have the right people in the right places. And you're in a lot of the right places based on where you live and also where you support players. I also loved the way that they talked about working with athletes, using a coaching model. A lot of what sounds like trust in education is really the de-risking that happens anytime we're looking at investments. Yeah. And a big part of what Meet the Athlete is about creating that platform, that surface for trust, that group that you can kind of have conversations with and start to ask questions in a trusted space and in a private space and even be vulnerable sometimes. Tina was very vulnerable, shared her story about trying to get into freight on her own and how difficult that was. And what Amazon has brought to the table today is a way to think about this entrepreneurial opportunity as an investment in yourself, and then how you de-risk that investment. And that's all we do all day here. Yep. So it fits right into the Meet the Athlete platform and profile. And we're going to continue to look for ways to work with athletes and create this trusted space and circle for them.
I would like to say, I would be remiss to not mention that this relationship also is very important, in this process, that without, my partnership or, newly growing relationship with Meet the Athlete, I wouldn't be sitting in this position to have a conversation with Amazon Freight Partners. So I want to thank you guys, for the consideration and just identifying this to be a possible opportunity for me and successful venture, not just for myself, but also Meet the Athlete and the platform that it provides. So thank you guys a lot.
Thank you. I'm very humbled that you taking the time to fly here. I know Houston is amazing, but to be here with us today, and I'm truly, truly, truly a fan of kind of what you've done and what you're gonna do. And so I want to be a part of some of that now that we're talking about Amazon Freight. None of that other stuff, I can't win championships, 17. But now, let's figure out this.
Look, we can create our own medals.
We're going to create our own medals. We'll get them.
On on-time delivery.
Yeah.
This is great. I appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.